How's it going, crypto community, XRP Martians? How you doing tonight? So, this is part 2 of my SNB research conference review series, where we break down just how monumentally important this particular conference is in Ripple's progress to complete and total domination of the global liquidities market, which accounts for tens, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars. This is big stuff, people. This is where the real money is, right? And this is the slow machine that I've been talking about when I say set your sights forward, because our future is brighter than any other. And after you watch this series and me dissecting this whole panel for you, you will have no doubts in your mind as to the future of your holdings, whatever they may amount to in XRP. So, before we hop into this video, let me first introduce the gentleman on the screen who we listened to at the end of my last video. His name is Barry Eichengreen. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, but he is an American economist who holds the title of George C. Pardee and Helen N. Pardee Professor of Economics and Political Science at the University of Berkeley, right? So there he has researched as a research fellow at the Center for Economic Policy Research. That's a little bit of a odd way to word that, but it is what it is. Eichengreen's mother, incidentally, was apparently an author and a Holocaust survivor. So, there's that. That's straight from his Wikipedia page, but obviously he is a highly lauded economist and held in high regards, thus for the way he portrays himself in these panels before such powerful people, right? It's very clear that he is very, very well received amongst his peers, we'll say. Now, what you're about to listen to is a professor from another university who has who first gives a decent insight into how money is valued, how it moves as of the current economic system, right? So we're going to listen to that first, and I hope to be able to extrapolate some data, some meaning from that for you. I feel that it's extremely educational, actually, and it's better for you to hear this from a professional, an executive from a financial organization saying this than just some random person on the internet, right? So, before we hop into this, though, if you are enjoying this series, if you have not yet, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and make sure to ring that bell so that you can be up to date as I publish out the entirety of this series. It's going to be a pretty long one. Obviously, I'm taking my time with this intro because I'm expecting this to be probably like another 20 minutes of us going on from this point, just because of how much content I want to try and get into each of these, right? But despite the fact that this is going to take a fair bit of time, it's really well worth it, and I hope that I will see all of you having engaged with it through the end. And please, feel free to engage in the comments with me. If there's something that they say that you'd like clarity on, please, emphasize it. Let's get this discussion going and really get a strong understanding. And if we do come to a more concise conclusion about everything, we can like cliff notes it all together, then I'll come back and I'll do a new series, a recap video at the very end, where I give a shout out to all the community members who helped me to create as concise and informative a video on what this conference really meant for the greater community to be able to consume, right? Because the idea is that we want everybody to understand the real inherent value in what Ripple Labs is doing right now in engaging with these individuals in this room, right? So, without any further ado, apologies for taking so long with the intro today, but let's hop right into it.
Yeah, I'm Harris Dallas from the University of Bern. I have a simple but I think fundamental question that regards the number of reserve issuing countries, world nominal interest rates, and the zero lower bound. So it relates to something that Barry said. So when we teach basic macro, we determine nominal interest rates by equating the demand for money to the supply of money. Under international capital mobility, this implies that the world nominal interest rates will be determined by equating global demand for money to global supply of money. So my question to Barry and also to John is, are there any reasons to believe that the composition of the world supply will matter for the determination of the interest rates? Because this is something that Barry mentioned, that if you have like one country, then it is easier to, or more probable to hit the zero lower bound than if you have more than one reserve. So this is, the world of monetarism, Switzerland, we have a long tradition. So I think this is a natural question.
So let's condense his question and the knowledge he just laid down on us, right? In the traditional system, value is derived from the creation of money into the system. That's how capital flows. Now, in this new system that we're discussing, it would be a cash as you need it system, right? So there's not going to be that many dollars or whatever currency you use in your country, right? There's not going to be that many of those, your national currency anymore. Instead, all those currencies are just going to be surface, kind of artificial, just superficial fronts for the liquidity pool behind it. And so what he's asking the panel is this, is if all these things are just basically superficial over top of it, so are any of them, is this really necessary? Is there any way for these currencies to remain tangible, to remain fungible, right? Like usable, or like, is it eventually going to be everybody's going to wake up? This is essentially what his question is in even more layman's terms, is won't everybody basically wake up one day and realize that these national currencies that people are using as opposed to the base currency behind it, aren't they going to wake up one day and say, oh, I'm just going to use that instead? So let's hear what the response is, right? What does Barry think? Have a response?
Thank you.
So my 10-second answer would be that there's an argument that not all currencies are created equal from the point of view of providing safety and liquidity internationally. So from that point of view, composition does matter.
So there you go. What did he just tell you? What did they just tell us? Not all currencies are made equal, right? I cannot wait for you guys to be able to engage in this conversation, because I just don't understand why nobody really caught on. I get that it's kind of boring, but I feel that if you pay close attention, it is really It's just right there in the open. They're very they even had, like, that professor even gave a little bit of insight to how the system works right now, and how this new system will be fundamentally different in a big way, and how that could have how he's afraid that could have a very dramatic impact on national centralized currencies, right? And he just, and he very just, you know, rather nonchalantly just says, well, not all currencies are made equal. That's huge, right? So, let's hop into the next comment. The idea is that I want to get through this panel with Barry, and then I will end this video and we will call it the part Barry, right? I'm going to try and give you everybody's parts through, because there is so many little nuggets of information that after I posted my first part, I was like, you know what? There's just too much good stuff in this for me to just jump around over and give you little clips out of it. There's so much good stuff. So we're going to go through it like this, and this is how we're going to indulge in it. And I'm going to try and keep these in about 20 to 30 minute segments. We'll see how well we can do that, right?
Well, thank you. This is Ahmed Al-Khulaifi, the governor of Saudi Arabia
So,
Monetary Authority.
this individual, before he speaks, actually, he is with the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, and SAMA has offered a pilot program with XRP back in February, and now we know that they are fully on board with XCurrent, right? To the point where Saudi Arabia is now opening payment corridors with India. So this is huge that this is unfolding, and now. So, but anyways, know who is now asking this question to Barry, who. So I'm also doing this because I want everybody to understand how many people in this room are associated with Ripple in some way or another now. If not during this, then very shortly after it, right? So, anyways, let's hop into what this gentleman, whose name I'm already forgetting. We'll be talking about him later in another video. He's actually on one of the panels. So.
From the perspective of a single commodity producer, I think keeping the reserve is obvious, is very important for us. You want to insulate your economy from the volatility of oil market. This is very important for us. And if you combine this with the exchange rate arrangement that we are following, that's the peg to the dollar, then you want to enhance confidence in that arrangement as well. In addition to that, you want to use the reserves in times of lower oil prices, as it happened in the history. So the short answer is yes, it makes us safer. Whether more demand of international reserves in the future, well, with the uncertainty we see, I'm afraid most likely the answer would be yes.
So, what did he say? He said, ultimately, this is the breakdown. He's suspicious. He doesn't necessarily understand the system, the blockchain digital asset system that's at play here. But the system that is being proposed would be safer and more stable. And if he had to say whether or not this would happen, right? Whether this would ever come to pass, unfortunately, he says yes. As in he doesn't want this to happen, but he believes it's still going to happen regardless of what he wants.
I think we have time for Governor Nawatni
and notice
Governor
how Barry
Smirai.
doesn't even address him, right? And now we see Christine Lagarde speaking to him directly during this moment, right? See her over there? Talking in his ear? Wonder what they're talking about. He seemed quite entertained by it, didn't he?
of the Austrian Central Bank. It was already mentioned that there doesn't exist a safe European asset, so nothing like this big liquid markets that we have in US treasuries. We have studies on that and working groups. There was one working group chaired by Philip Lane, who is our incoming chief economist at the ESRB. I was also a member of this, but we have no perspective of this. Now we have also the project of a European Capital Market Union. And so my question is, do you see a working European Capital Market Union feasible without a safe European asset?
So, the question is this: does the Europe model work if the asset, the safe asset, is not a European asset? It's not a question of whether it's a safe asset. It's a question of whether it's a safe European asset. Look at all their faces. Nobody wants to answer it. They're like, yo, can you? No, maybe you? Oh, come on. Oh, dude, I don't want to answer this. Oh, right? Okay. Enough lowbrow kind of analysis of it, but this is a pretty serious question, though, right? Let's see who responds here.
Okay. Can I think about it and give an answer later?
It's a very complicated question, right?
At the end, I will make a final remark.
So my view would be actually that Europe can go a long way in the direction of capital markets union without the equivalent of Eurobonds, which I think is what you're referring to. Reasonable people may disagree, but that would be my initial position, I think.
Thank you.
So I think that oh no, he goes up to 23. Never mind. Wow, we're still kind of early.
Very good panel, and thank you for the insights. From what has been said, it seems that despite the pros and cons, the current international monetary system proved to be quite resilient, and the problems we have, or we had in 2008 in the United States, then in Europe, they were mostly regional problems having to do with bad policies, inadequate supervision, and the current monetary system, which is quasi-dollar-based but moving into a multipolar one, and the speed of the movement will depend on whether China, for instance, will open its capital markets, while Europe will obtain a safe currency, as Ewald said. So can we say that it is mostly a regional question, the problems we have today, rather than a problem of the international monetary system per se? And second, the other reason of our troubles today is the low growth rate, low productivity rate. Perhaps to invoke Solo again, we might be in this time lag that Solo has talked about the paradox of productivity. Here we have new inventions today, but it will take time for these inventions to be translated into higher productivity and higher growth. So here, can we say that monetary policy should not be the only play in town, but fiscal policy, structural policy should encourage investment in research and development, so at the end of the day, our star will go up and productivity growth will go
So
up?
very, very long-winded two-part question, right? His first part was, do you believe that basically all the problems that we've experienced in the global economies, as far as, you know, boom and bust cycle and the mishandling of the 2008 financial fallout, do you think that that was all regional problems, or do you think that that is a systemic global problem? Was it a problem of just, you know, the U.S. having poor policy and then Europe having poor policy, or is it just the system as a whole is inefficient? His second question was, oh my, let's listen to the last few seconds, sorry.
Again, we might
Oh.
be in this time lag that Solo has talked about the paradox of productivity. Here we have new inventions today, but it will take time for these inventions to be translated into higher productivity and higher growth. So here, can we say that monetary policy should not be the only play in town, but fiscal policy, structural policy should encourage investment in research and development, so at the end of the day, our star will go up and productivity
Yeah,
also
sorry.
will go
So
up.
the second question is, should we also begin directing funds to investing in infrastructure and research and development around the world, as opposed to just allowing these things to happen naturally? Should the banks take a more proactive role in just straight up funding these things outright so that we can push the envelope on the forefront of technologies, right? Very, very good questions.
Thank you.
Anyone? I'm happy to give it a go. The argument that it's not simply a set of regional problems is that the structure of the international monetary system amplified and served as a transmission belt for national and regional problems, that the US was able to go further out on the subprime limb, if you will, as a result of the global demand for dollar-denominated assets that were perceived as safe until they were revealed to be unsafe. The system served as a transmission belt of those problems from US banks and financial institutions to European banks and financial institutions because of the importance of dollar-denominated credit. So that's the argument that the international system mattered that we can develop as the day
So
unfolds.
he's saying,
Finally,
yes, unfortunately, the system has allowed for these extraordinary gaps in the equality of our system, which has now begun to have profound implications upon the basic fabric of society, in the fact that we are now becoming ever more polarized in our views and aggressive towards others as whoever you follow, whoever, not saying you, my viewer, are, but whoever most of us individuals follow, as opposed as far as politically or whatever, religiously, whatever it is. We all have our belief sets that we hold to, and despite any real validity to most of them, we know that we probably all hold a few that, it doesn't matter that there's no validity to it. Nobody can validate their alternative, so we're allowed to hold ours, they're allowed to hold theirs, and have a good one. But, back on point, the idea is, yes, because the United States dollar has this global supremacy, it was able to essentially break the system, right? And now the dollar is running wild, and the rest of the world economy is now being devoured essentially by it, as the United States and China essentially go into this ever-escalating trade conflict, right? So this is a very kind of tense question. That's why he was so open-ended at the end. As you notice, that's the first time he was in this conversation so far that we've had, that he was actually kind of standoffish, right?
last 30 seconds, I will invoke my moderator's exorbitant privilege to engage with Gita just for a moment. I think we agree that the answer about what kind of system will develop going forward depends on the importance of these complementarities between the different functions of international currencies. We both have intuitions about that are shade in slightly different directions, but we don't have the kind of systematic empirical evidence yet, I think, to be confident about how strong or weak those complementarities
So,
are.
again, he's talking about the fact that these international currencies, as they call them, cryptocurrencies, though, they don't know. He's confident in this, but there's no hard evidence that these systems will work in practice. Theoretically they do, but we don't have hard evidence yet to absolutely confirm it. So I think.
So with that, let me thank everybody involved.
So
I think
that is the end of this panel. And then next time when we come back, we will be having a listen to Charles Ingle as he introduces the future of finance panel for all of us, right? This was just the end of the past of finance, and it was a lead-in to the future. And I really wanted to give Barry a lot more airtime than I did in the first one, just because he's really sharp, and the way that the panel basically left almost all of the end questions up to him was rather telling about how tight-lipped each of these organizations is being about what they are personally doing, right? But the important thing here is that Barry is the one whose opinion is being spread throughout this room, right? And as we touched upon, Barry is oh wait, we haven't touched upon it yet, I don't think, but Barry is associated with Ripple, and we can touch upon that in another video. But for now, this video has already gone on plenty long enough, so let's call this a wrap. I've been Jade Martian, bringing you this in-depth breakdown of the Swiss National Bank Research Conference. Please, if you enjoyed this, hit that like, hit that subscribe, ring that bell, and stay tuned for the next part of this conference, where we get into even more juicy details that string all the organizations in this room, as we string all the organizations in this room, as that were, to Ripple Labs, and find out just how close we truly are to global adoption. So, I look forward to seeing you on Mars.